Hey guys, tonight we're digging into Viking chess sets carved from whalebone and the drunken bet that might ended a kingdom. Picture this, your boots sink into a storm-blackened beach as waves roar like battle-hungry gods. Your seconds from uncovering artifacts that make Indiana Jones trade his whip for a mead horn. Though fair warning, you probably won't survive this story's first commercial break. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Helps me imagine who's drifting through these tailies. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your shovel strikes wood, salt-crusted iron groaning in protest, as you pry open a chest older than your last 3 relationships. Inside, carved figures glimmer like petrified moonlight. Knights glare through helmet slits. Queens clutch spears instead of scepters. Their faces wear grimaces even your ex couldn't match. Historians agree these pieces mirror the Lewis Chessmen, real 12th century gaming sets found buried in Scotland. But here's the twist. These aren't wood or ivory. Run your thumb over a pawn's flank. Feel the porous texture of Leviathan bone. Whispered legends claim Viking carvers soaked whale ribs in sour milk, softening them for knives honed on grudges. One bishop's mitre bears runes spelling, "Drowning is kinder." Cheery guys, these Norsemen. You lift a rook shaped like a longship, its hull scarred by obsessive polish. Some craftsmen reportedly rubbed whale grease into carvings, a ritual to preserve their stink of victory. Imagine explaining that Yankee candle scent, the set's missing a king. His throne sits empty, the felt beneath it stained darker than the rest. Historians still argue whether these boards trained warlords or let drunk Jarls play act their doom. A rumor persists that the final piece was swallowed during a bet. Some poor fool's guts ripped open post-game to retrieve it. Total myth, obviously. Probably. Wind howls through the chest's rusted hinges, a sound like lost sailors begging for mercy. You pocket a pawn. Its whalebone warms against your hip, as if still swimming. Maybe that's why museums display these sets behind glass, touching them barehanded. Let's just say you might start craving raw herring and bad decisions. Rain lashes your face as you rebury the chest, each chessman whispering Nordic curses in your skull. You walk away, boots heavier than when you arrived. The pawn in your pocket pulses like a second heartbeat. But hey, at least you'll skip tomorrow's gym session. Bone shavings cling to your fingertips as you kneel beside Ragnar, the carver, his chisel dancing across a whale rib, bleached by decades of salt and sun. Norse law demanded these sea beast bones stay unconsumed by fire your elbow deep in a 9th century recycling project, turning slaughter into strategy. The blade's rhythm hits like a war drum, chip, tap, pause, as if the Leviathan itself protests being reborn as a pawn. One wrong strike, Ragnar grunts, blowing ivory dust from a half-formed bishop, and you'll answer to the whale spirit. Ever seen a ghost with barnacles? His joke hangs between you, as thin as the frost on his beard. Historical records confirm Greenlandic artisans favored sperm whale teeth. Their dense marrow held intricate details without splintering. Yet here, under this reindeer hide tent, Ragnar's using a minke's jawbone cheaper, abundant, cursed by saga poets as the coward's ivory. A fermented stench assaults your nose. He's rubbing seal fat into the grooves, keeps the bone from cracking, he explains, wiping grease onto his already shiny tunic. Archaeologists found similar residue on 14 chessmen in a Danish bog, though they still debate whether it's preservative or ritual offering. You watch the rook emerge, crude waves etched along its base, swallowing what might be tiny drowning men. Or maybe they're just decorative spirals. Historians still argue whether Viking chess was art or propaganda. Ragnar's version tilts drunkenly, its crenellations uneven. Rough seas make rough castles, he chuckles, tossing it onto a pile of failed knights. Wind howls through the tent flap, scattering bone dust like ashes. Your lungs itch with every breath. This work's killing you faster than a North Sea winter. Ragnar doesn't seem to notice. He's hunched over a king piece now, tongue poking through rotten teeth as he carves the tiny crown. 6 days pass this way, blisters rising, thawing, rising again. The finished set glows like clouded moonlight when you hold it up, queens gripping spears instead of scepters, bishops bearing axes, one pawn's missing an eye. Ragnar calls it Odin's wink and refuses to fix it. By week's end, your back's bent like an old bowstring, ready to trade immortal glory for a warm bed. Ragnar smirks, wrapping the chessmen in walrus hide. You nod, failing to hide your trembling hands. They twitch like hooked fish, even in sleep. Tonight's mead tastes different, saltier. You wonder if bone dust seeped into the barrel, or if that's just the ghost whale's revenge. Firelight licks the chessboard's edge as you slump onto a mead-slick bench. Thorstein, the unsteady, slams his drinking horn, scattering pawns like fleeing villagers. Bet my best thrall against your silver arm ring. He slurs, breath reeking of fermented crowberries. You counter with a half-smirk and a safer wager. 3 seal-fat candles. Everybody knows Viking drinking games ended in marriage annulments or blood feuds. A thrall refills your cup, suspiciously foamy. Turns out they're using a 10th century recipe found stamped into a Danish well bucket. Honey, bog myrtle, and a pinch of hallucinogenic henbane. Your vision blurs pleasantly. The Ivory King seems to wink as Thorstein moves him into certain doom. Skál. 30 voices roar as you capture his bishop, a piece carved with a tiny squirrel motif. Archaeologists found 6 squirrel-inscribed chessmen in Iceland. Some claim they represent Ratatoskr, the gossip monger of Norse myth. Thorstein doesn't care. He's too busy accusing you of Finnish sorcery. because you moved a knight backward. Mead drips onto the board. It pools around your rook, warping the whalebone. Historians still argue whether Viking nobles played sober or perpetually pickled. You've got your answer. Thorstein just bet his longship on a kamikaze pawn charge. His third mate facepalms so hard his amber necklace snaps. Midnight creeps in. Drunken thanes collapse onto flea-ridden pelts. You're down to your last piece when a red-bearded giant lurches over Björn Forkbeard, reeking of burnt whale blubber. Play me, he growls, slapping a fist-sized ruby onto the board. But we use the old rules. Your stomach sinks. Old rules means berserker moves. Pieces can attack diagonally. Kings can teleport if you recite a skaldic verse, and any player vomiting loses instantly. Björn starts by sacrificing 5 pawns to Odin's ravens while chanting a dirge about a one-eyed walrus. The ruby glints like a frozen bloodstain. You're calculating odds until a mouse scurries across the board, toppling Björn's queen. He blames you. 73 drunken Vikings pause their brawling to witness his revenge challenge. A knife-throwing contest, blindfolded, using your non-dominant hand. Across the hall, Thorstein snores into a bread trough, candle wax hardening in his beard. The fire crackles its embers, painting the ceiling with shadow puppet wars. Somewhere, a dog licks mead off the floor. Your throwing hand twitches, still scarred from last week's seal-gutting incident. Björn grins, dangling the blindfold, a strip of linen that smells suspiciously like goat udder salve. The ruby winks. The mouse watches. You take a slug of henbane brew and pray the ghost whales, feeling merciful tonight. Moonlight slicks the cobblestones as you duck into Bergen's shadowed docks. The stench of rancid cod liver oil hits first. Whispers coil from a tarp-covered stall where a one-eared trader balances walrus tusks on a scale crusted with barnacles. 50 silver coins for the lot, he croaks, mistaking you for a desperate bone buyer. You cough, he blinks, and the haggling begins. Medieval Norse towns like Kopping ran on this dance, traders hawking everything from amber to elk antlers. But whalebone, that's the real currency here. The man fans out rib fragments carved with serpentine patterns, each groove stained with something rust brown. Harvested fresh from the Shetland wrecks, he lies smoothly. You spot old Norse tally marks etched into the side. Someone counted 93 notches before the carving began. Historians still argue whether these markets funded Viking expansions or simply cleaned up after too many drunken chieftains lost their kingdoms over a bad bet. A boy tugs your sleeve, offering a rook carved from sperm whale teeth. His price, the silver ring you won from Thorstein last week. You hesitate. The piece feels warmer than bone should. He claims it once belonged to a Greenlandic sorcerer queen who poisoned 3 husbands via chessboard. Likely hogwash, until your thumb brushes a rune and the carving pulses like a slowed heartbeat. 3 stalls down, a drunkard waves a narwhal tusk like a lance. He's trying to trade it for a bride price. 18 goats and a barrel of cloudberries. The vendor slams a fist, shouting how real men barter in blood-stained silver. Records from Hedeby's trading posts list whalebone among their priciest exports, right below iron ingots and enslaved craftsmen. But this guy, he's all theatrics and mead breath. Midnight's bell tolls, sellers vanish into mist, leaving behind bone dust and poultry feathers. The rook hums in your palm now, its heat leaching into your wrist. You pocket it, ignoring the itch spreading up your arm. A 12th century amulet found near Reykjavik shows a raven pecking at a chess piece. The runes on its back roughly translate to "Don't let grandma play after sundown." You're starting to see why. Wind funnels through the harbor. It carries a growl too deep for human throats. The last vendor stares as you pass, her face half shadowed by a seal gut hood. "They always come back," she mutters, nodding at your bulging pocket. "Bones remember the hunt." Her teeth gleam blue-black in the moonlight, like someone chewed too much whalebone ash. By dawn, your ring fingers swollen double. The rook's jagged edge has bitten into your flesh. Salt crystallizes on your lips. Somewhere beyond the fjords, a whale song ripples through fog, a morning cry or a summons. The itch climbs your elbow now, sharp as a carver's chisel. You've heard tales of entire crews vanishing after buying cursed sets, their boards found adrift, pieces rearranged into a single word. Ode. Rain begins, acidic drops pockmark the rook's surface. It laughs, you're sure of it. A tinny, marrow-deep chuckle. Your coin purse feels lighter, and when you check, the silver has flaked away like rotten wood. The amulet woman's words slither back. Bones remember. You're halfway to the docks before realizing you've forgotten how to blink. Rainwater courses down your neck as you reach the docks. The longship ahead shudders under a sickly green aurora. 2 figures hunch over a weathered board lashed to a barrel, their pieces glowing faintly. One's a berserker with braids matted by mead, the other a queen in moth-eaten, furs reeking of fermented cloudberries. "Your move, traitor," the queen hisses. Her bishop, a walrus tusk brute, chipped at the jaw, creaks forward. The board's edges swam with faded runes. H. Nefertafel, that old Viking war game, but warped. Pawns bear whale-rib sickles instead of shields. A rook's carved like the Midgard serpent devouring its tail. You know this set. The Lewis Chessmen in Edinburgh's vaults have the same bulging eyes, minus the bloodstains. The berserker slams his tankard, sloshing ale across the board. Liquid seeps into the bone, making pawns hiss like wet iron. Skald's Tailies claim Harold Bluetooth lost Denmark over a drunk bet. He growls, advancing a knight with barnacle spurs. But I won't. Forgot your own wager, Eirik. The queen flicks a pawn. Its blade nicks his thumb. 3 casks of mead, and your ship. Mead. Always mead. Archaeologists found residue in 10th century cups from Jorvik honey, cranberries, enough potency to floor a moose. This batch smells worse, fenberries and seal blubber. The queen's breath alone could melt lead. Eirik bellows, flipping the board, pieces clatter onto rain-slick planks. But the game, it sticks. Kings slide back into position, their bases fused to the wood. A hum rises, like whale song filtered through a war horn. Cheat, Eirik roars, drawing a dirk. The queen giggles, twirling a pawn between ink-stained fingers. Ever heard of the Gulating Law Code? That medieval Norwegian legislature banned drunken duels over board games. Too many earls skewered mid-checkmate. The aurora pulses, shadows stretch the combatants into giants. Eirik's blade arcs and lodges in the queen's rook. Bone cracks, a stench of spoiled ambergris floods the dock. The rook's carved serpent uncoils, sinking fangs into his wrist. Knew a carver in Trondheim, the queen murmurs, watching Eirik convulse. Mixed mead with whale-fat glue, said it made pieces lively. She flicks a bishop, it topples his king with a marrow-deep crack. Eirik's crown, a rusted nail ring, rolls into a puddle. The queen pockets it, smirk curdling as the aurora fades. Historians still argue whether Viking matches ended by strategy or whatever swill they'd guzzled. You step back, your boots crunch on something, a pawn, its blades still wet. The queen winks, tapping her temple. Best game I ever played was against a monk. Used psalm scraps as betting chips. Poor fool thought checkmate meant forgiving debts. The longship creaks, its sail billows without wind. Eirik's body's gone. Only his dirk remains, half melted into the board. The queen offers you a pawn. Next round's on you, little mouse. Rain drums harder. Your ring finger throbs where the rook bit you earlier. Last year, divers off Gotland found a chess piece wedged in a skull's eye socket. The runes read, paid in full. You decline. She laughs, a sound like ice surrendering to spring thaw. Smart. Odin himself lost an eye for wisdom. Her finger traces the board's edge, but he kept playing right up till Ragnarök. The tide turns, salt spray stings your eyes. When you blink, the ship's a skeleton of driftwood and rust. The board, just rotted planks, save for one ivory king, grinning through a crown of barnacles. The barnacle-crowned king weighs heavy in your palm, its base etched with angular scars. Each mark whispers as you turn it, Ansas, Thurisaz, Rado. Viking runes, but twisted. The final glyph ends in a hook, like an anchor meant to drag souls downward. Rain ceased hours ago, sea spray keeps your cheeks stinging. That's when you spot it. Wedged between splintered deck planks, a rook. Not ivory, whale vertebrae. Its surface, a spiderweb of carvings, tilted toward the moonlight, and shadows coalesce into shapes. A hanged man dangling above waves, a ship sinking beneath a chessboard sea. Mind your eyes, rasps a voice. A figure emerges from the mist, cloak dripping, hands gloved in cod skin. Their mask, a dried skate stretched across bone-thin cheeks. They called me Styrbjörn when I still had lips to bear the name. You freeze, not at the horror movie cosplay been there, but at their satchel. Dozens of chessmen clatter inside, each carved with the same sinister runes. Björn plucks the rook from your grip. Saw your little light show with the drunken Jarls. You've got the stink of Nefertafel on you now. They trace a rune with a barnacle pick. No, what separates Viking chess from the Arab game everyone stole? Our kings die surrounded. No glorious last stand, just a slow chokehold. The pick digs deeper. That's why the carvers hid these. A flake of bone falls away. Beneath lies a second layer of markings. Not Norse. Older. Agam, Björn breathes. Celtic tree script. My thesis back at Uppsala argued, crack. The rook splits, a puff of black lichen explodes into their masks, eyeless holes. Björn convulses. The skate skin shrivels tighter, snapping their jaws shut with a wet pop. You lunge backward as their satchel bursts. Chessmen skitter across the deck, each carving sprouting fibrous tendrils. A knight's horsehead writhes, its mane becomes kelp. Scholars found similar Agam Norse hybrid stones in Misho tomb. Graffiti, like Thalfir Kolbinson, carved these runes high. This less Kilroy was here, more abandon all hope. Björn collapses, their gloved hand claws at your ankle. Between choked gurgles they wheeze. Water, the 13, too late. Their body deflates. A reek of fermented pine needles floods the air. The gloves, empty. The skate mask, now just a skate. Historians still argue whether Viking rune magic was real or just drunk posturing. Watching a pawn inchworm its way toward the railing, you're leaning real. The tendrilled pieces plop overboard except one. That first rook. It gleams dry despite the spray, and warmer than living flesh. Turn it sideways, and the carvings align a map. Not of land. Depths. Zigzagging trenches, kelp forests shaped like rookies, a spiral marking where your ring finger still throbs from the bite. A wave slams the hull, saltwater sheets across the deck, washing away lichen residue. The rook's surface now reads clean. Letter 1682, letter 1682, letter 1682. 3 runes, strength, survival, primal oxen, or in your current context, you're screwed thrice over. Something nudges your boot. Björn's barnacle pick. Its tip holds a scrap of vellum. To silence the sea's tongue burn, what drifts bury, what swims spit blood, where stone sings cute. Cryptic advice always pairs well with potential drowning. You pocket the rook. It thrums against your thigh like a second heartbeat. Overhead, gulls cry. Not gulls, laughing. One swoops, a chess queen clutched in its talons, the same moth-eaten fur queen from the docks. She waves as the bird banks north, toward shore. No, toward that darker patch of horizon, where waves crest like pawns, charging into battle. You exhale a mistake. The rook's heat spreads, tinged with whale oil's briny reek. Somewhere beneath you, the sea whispers, moves in a game older than kings. Your finger throbs harder. Last month, Icelandic teens viral videoed fidget spinner rune stones they'd found near Reykjavik. Museum pros called it a hoax. You think of those lichen tendrils and wonder. The ship lurches, a sound like dice rattling in a giant's fist. You grab the rail. Now's when a hero would toss the cursed artifact overboard, but your hand won't unclench. The rook's pulsing sinks with the waves. 3 beats. Pause. 2 beats. A rhythm. Morse code before Morse. Viking-era ship-to-ship signals used shield flashes, 3 for danger, 2 for safe harbor. This message loops both. Clever. Moonlight fractures through clouds. The rook's carvings cast shadows that squirm, forming a single word across your wrist. Ladinger, the old Norse naval levy system. Every coastal farm required to supply ships and warriors. A draft notice from beyond the grave, the laugh gulls crescendo. You pocket the rook. Whatever game you've been swept into, the next moves clear. Find dry land. Fast. Water seeps into your boots. When did that start? The deck tilts. Driftwood cracks. You're sinking, or the ocean's rising. The rook burns hotter, a compass needle twisting toward that spiraled trench on its map. Somewhere, a queen laughs. Somewhere closer, something hungry answers. The water isn't cold, that's the first lie your brain tells. It clamps your ribs like a whalebone corset, and then the burning starts. Not from lungs, from the rook in your fist, now glowing like a forge-heated ingot. You sink faster than coins tossed for Karen, past jellyfish flickering like candle flames, past eels writing runic jokes in their own ink. Pressure builds. Your ears pop, a sound like chess pieces crushed under boot. Then stillness. The rook's light reveals a seabed chessboard, kelp strands for ranks, coral clumps for squares. Figures hover above it. If figures still applies when they're 90% beard and 10% barnacles. They're game pieces. Your breath hitches. Human teeth. Horse molars. A walrus tusk king crowned with gull skulls. One specter turns, eyeless sockets tracking your descent. His beard sways like sea grass. You recognize the style. 4th century Norse warriors braided horsetail into their facial hair for battle luck. Mainstream museums never mention the lice outbreaks. Guest bellows beard number 2, voice bubbling like a drowning accordion. He slaps the board with a starfish hand. You bring the H-naprost. The rook pulses, 3 quick throbs. Their teeth clatter, laughter shakes loose a passing flounder. Beard 1 licks his lips with a tongue like rotting kelp. Sit. The drowned king's chair awaits. The chair is a hagfish nest. You decline politely by kicking toward the surface. Bad plan. The rook yanks your arm downward, a dog leash made of whalebone spite. You crash into the hagfish throne. It undulates. Of course it does. Beard 2 slams a molar pawn forward. Harold's Gambit. Classic. His opponent counters with a crevice crustacean bishop. The game accelerates, pieces snapping, seafloor trembling. You glimpse carvings on their table, 2 intertwined serpents, the gelling stone motif. If someone let Vikings graffiti it during a mead bender. The rook sears your palm. You drop it onto the board, instantly regretting the move. The specters freeze. Beard One's beard braids unravel, revealing hooked worms where hairs should be. Otter's wager, he hisses. You play now. A wave of pressure slams your skull, visions flood in. A ship's hold warriors, hunched over a whalebone, set their bets paid in finger bones. One man carves runes into his own thigh to stay awake. Historians still argue whether Viking longship crews played chess or just dice. Spoiler, both, with stakes that make Vegas cringe. The vision shifts. A carver dips his chisel in mead and his own blood. Each piece he finishes whispers a name. Egil, Thora, Sigurd. The last pawn steals his voice. When archaeologists unearthed the Lewis Chessmen in 1831, they missed the faint blood rust in the grooves. You don't. Your turn, gurgles Beard 2. The board resets. Your pieces, chipped seal teeth. Theirs, serrated shark molars. You reach for a pawn, it bites your finger. Fair enough. Beard 1 chuckles, a sound like bubbles escaping a coffin. First lesson, drown your own men early. Mercy floats, corpses sink. He sacrifices 3 pawns to corner your king, a translucent squid sucker. Quirky fact. In 1962, a Soviet grandmaster claimed his losing match was haunted. They found him trying to flush his rook down a hotel toilet. Light dims. The rook's glow shrinks to a flicker. Above, shadows converge, the same serpentine shape from the trench map. Beard 2's grin widens. Second lesson, all games end the same way here. He flicks a barnacle-crusted night. The seabed cracks. A whirlpool spins beneath your chair. Hagfish swarm your ankles. The specters lean closer, breath reeking of last millennium's herring. Check, says Beard 1. Mate, corrects Beard 2. The whirlpool surges. You grip the rook. It carves runes into your palm. Svel half dothy. Ice, sea, death. Classic Norse triple threat. Your free hand brushes the board's edge, where Celtic Ogham script bleeds into younger Norse runes. One phrase repeats, beware the quiet ones. Too late for that. The rook erupts in white flame, doesn't even singe your skin. The specters recoil. She warned us, shrieks Beard 2, disintegrating into shrimp food. His buddy follows, cursing in Proto-Norse that somehow auto-translates to cheater. Silence. The chessboard melts into silt. Only the rook remains, plus something new. A seaweed scroll tied with, is that a Viking nose hair? You unfurl it, waterlogged vellum shows a ship carved from a single narwhal tusk. Its mast holds a banner. Laid anchor, pressure shifts. That serpentine shadow coils tighter overhead, a single amber eye opening. The rook's heat returns, but now it's cold. Arctic cold. Your lungs scream. Your thumb traces the scroll's edge. The narwhal ship's prow points northwest. You kick upward. Ravenous jaws snap where your feet just floated. The rook's light dies. Dark engulfs you, save for 2 glowing lines ahead. Not sunlight. Bioluminescent mushrooms. They cling to a sunken longship's ribs, one final board awaiting its players. The scroll trembles in your grip. Choices. drown fighting shadows, or drown moving pieces for them. Somewhere beyond the abyss, a queen laughs, and this time you recognize the tune. That damn bard's melody from the tavern. Should have tipped better. The serpent's tail brushes your heel cold as Valhalla's doormat. You pocket the scroll and spin toward the mushroom ship. Maybe undead Vikings appreciate a good bargainer. Or maybe they just appreciate fresh meat. The rook's final pulse mirrors your heartbeat, both speeding toward a finish line you didn't know existed. You stroke the narwhal carving and wonder if chess counts as a life skill in Helheim. Teeth gleam in the dark. Time to find out. The mead hits your tongue like liquefied bad decisions, cloying honey masking whatever they fermented this batch in. Beer 3, 4, slams his cup on the kelp table. Skål, Odin invented hangovers to punish cowards. His cup is a hollowed-out horsehoof. You're too busy coughing up sea brine to argue etiquette. 3 drinks in, or is it 4? The chessboard stops making sense. Pawns wear little horned helmets now. Your rook keeps moonwalking off the edge. Focus, hisses the specter across from you, a skeletal figure with an ale stein fused to his left hand. Actual history, nugget. Norsemen drank from communal buckets at feasts. And yes, that included random spit swapping with your worst enemy's cousin. Your finger hovers over a bishop. Or is it a toothpick? The board tilts. Suddenly you're moving pieces with a herring instead of your hand. Drunkard's defense. Cackles a voice from the mead mist. Sacrifice pawns like their last week's lutefisk. You shove a seal-toothed knight forward, straight into a shark-jawed trap. A wave of fog rolls in, or maybe that's your vision collapsing. The pieces blur into a frenzied brawl. Your queen decapitates a pawn with a mussel shell axe. Quirky tangent. An 8th century Swedish grave held a warrior buried with his gaming pieces, and 18 empty ale horns. Priorities, reality snapbacks, cold seawater stinging your nostrils. The specter lifts his cup. Again, a true sea king dies mid-gulp. You squint at the board. Half your army's missing. The remaining pieces tremble, their whalebone edges glowing faintly. Historians still argue whether Vikings ever spiked drinks before key battles. Current consensus: they didn't need to. Your thumb finds the rook in your pocket, still ice cold from the abyss. The specter notices. Cheat, and I'll turn your lungs into buoyancy bladders. His threats undercut by a belch that smells like fermented cod liver. You fumble a pawn forward. Mistake. His bishop, a twisted thing with hagfish teeth, leaps over 3 pieces to pin your king. Flawless, he roars, sloshing mead onto a seaweed map of Norway. Sober men fear sacrifice. Drunks embrace it. Your head throbs in Old Norse. The rook's chill spreads up your arm, a welcome counter to the mead fire in your gut. Shapeshifters, these pieces, now resembling gutted fish on a drying rack. One pawn winks at you. You wink back. Why not? The specter freezes. You see them, the winking codpiece, hard to miss. He leans closer, ale stein trembling. Third lesson, boards remember. His finger bone gleaming through translucent flesh traces a rune on your king. This one starved during the great frost, gambled his children's bread for one more game. The piece shatters, salt stings your eyes, or maybe it's the meat-induced guilt. A conch shell sounds somewhere beyond the waves. The specter's face sags. Dawn comes. He gestures at your decimated army, your move, corpse. You squint at the rook, then hurl it at his ale stein. Both shatter, spilling liquid moonlight across the board. He howls as the pieces dissolve into eel spawn. No rules, you slur, channeling every tipsy genius from here to Valhalla. Said so yourself. The mead hall illusion crumbles. You're back in the hagfish throne, ankles gnawed raw, lungs burning, but alive. Ish, the specter's final scream fades into whale song. Cold clarity hits harder than a sobering plunge into Arctic seas. Your hand digs through silt, closing on the narwhal scroll. The rook's fragments glint nearby, arranging themselves into a single rune. Dugger, perseverance, or maybe indigestion. Old Norse is tricky. Shadows ripple above the serpentine shape, weaving through sunken longships. It's closer now, much closer. Your fingers clutch the scroll's edge, where vellum meets something rougher. Shark skin. The choice crystallizes. Swim for the bioluminescent ship, or ride the whirlpool down to whatever's grinning in the trench. You kick toward the light, every stroke weighted by mead regrets, and the specter's final lesson. Mercy floats. Corpses sink, teeth gleam in the dark. Your fingers brush the ship's hull. It's not wood, but interlocked ribs of something colossal. Whale vertebrae form archways overhead, each one wider than your arm span. A museum placard whispers in your memory. Viking craftsmen used whalebone for everything from shovels to sled runners. Even combs that outlasted their owners' skulls. The air smells like a taxidermist's attic, linseed oil, and forgotten attic. The chest set waits on a kelp-draped table, pieces carved from vertebrae, still pocked with harpoon scars. You lift a bishop. It hums, a war hymn vibrating through your molars. Beneath your boots, the floor creaks, not with rot, but with the arthritic groan of old bone. Quirky side note. A 10th century Icelandic law forbade carving whalebone during thunderstorms. Locals believed it attracted lightning wraiths. You're suddenly grateful for the stale calm. Each piece feels heavier than it should. The rook weighs like a ship's anchor, yet balances on a thumb tip. Historians still argue whether these carvings held spiritual significance or were just Viking doodles. You trace a king's hacked-off crown, edges jagged as broken promises. His blank eyes follow you. Moss clings to the board, tiny forests where pawns once marched. Under your breath, you name them. Eric the Unwashed, Olaf Forkbeard's second cousin thrice removed, that guy who died from eating bad walrus. Your joke dies lonely in the ribcage vault. This place smothers laughter like a wet cloak. A tremor shakes the chamber. The serpentine shape circles outside, blotting out bioluminescent plankton with each pass. You grip a pawn. Its base is inscribed with runes, or maybe barnacles. Time blurs here. Centuries are just another tide. The whalebone groans. Shadows twist into shapes. A hooded figure chiseling tusks by firelight. His hands bleed into the tool, or maybe the tool bleeds into him. Every curve a prayer, he mutters to no one. Every crack a king's downfall. The vision evaporates, leaving the taste of blubber smoke on your tongue. The ship lurches. Pieces skitter. You catch the queen before she falls, her expression now twisted in panic. Outside, the water darkens. That's no serpent. It's a jawbone the length of a longship. Teeth like splintered mast poles. Leviathan doesn't begin to cover it. You jam the pawn into your pocket. Bad idea. The bone sucks warmth from your thigh. Your breath fogs. Each exhale a ghostly strategy session. Checkmate with hypothermia. Typical Viking subtlety. The table cracks. Ale erupts from its core, frothy and reeking of yesterday's low tide. The liquid sloshes into a map of the North Sea. If the North Sea were drawn by a drunk cartographer with a grudge. Islands migrate. Coastlines dueling. The boards alive and deeply petty. Muffled thunder shakes the chamber. That's not the beast outside, it's older. Deeper. The whale's own heartbeat, fossilized but still kicking. You press a palm to the floor. 200 years pulse against your skin. 300. 4. The math dissolves like sugar in mead. Your stolen pawn vibrates, almost purring. A crack splits its surface. Out oozes black sludge. Of course, ancient whalebone's two moods, hauntingly majestic or cursed motor oil. The serpent rams the hull, vertebrae screech, a sound felt in the teeth, not heard. The board's Ailsie goes tsunami. Half the pieces dive overboard. Your queen clings to a carved kraken, screaming in silent Norse. You spot an escape, a hatch masked by ribs, too narrow, too human-sized. You shed your waterlogged coat. It's devoured by the floor before hitting ground. The message is clear. This ship digests cowards. Light bleeds through the hatch, not daylight, but the cold flicker of glowworms. Last chance. You vault onto the table, king's crown jabbing your heel, and leap. Whalebone groans, or maybe applauds. The serpent's teeth snap your shadow as you squirm through. Corridor walls press closer, great curved bars trapping you in a skeletal throat. Behind, the chessboard's death rattle fades. Ahead, a faint shimmer, the most beautiful sight since your first hangover. Exit. But the whale isn't done. The corridor contracts, ribs creaking inward. You crawl faster. Your pawn's sludge stains fingers sticky and hot as fresh tar. 10 meters. 5. The exit's a porthole, framed in teeth. You dive, shoulders scraping through bone as the jaws slam shut. Cold water shocks the smugness away. The serpent veers its pupil a portal to some colder darkness. Kick, kick, kick. Sunlight filters through waves above. The pawn drags you down till you let it go. 2 lessons today. Whalebones remember. and they hate cheats. Cold salt water coughs you onto a pebble beach, each stone polished smooth by grudges. Moonlight paints the fjord in quicksilver and lies. Your soaked clothes cling like a disappointed parent. Ahead, smoke tendrils clawing at stars. Someone's burning ambition, or yesterday's fish stew. You trudge inland, boots squelching Viking curses. Pine resin stings your nose, covering a fouler stench. Rotting whale blubber, regret. Same difference here. A shadow darts between moon-washed pines, too low for a man, too quiet for a bear. Your stolen pawn's absence throbs in your pocket, phantom limb syndrome for thieves. The smoke leads to a longhouse, its roof sagging under moss and bad decisions. Inside, snoring warriors. A hearth choked with ashes, and there, on a driftwood pedestal, a chessboard carved from familiar bone. The king wears a narwhal tusk crown, Viking bling at its most extra. Mainstream fact. Actual Norse lords traded walrus ivory like crypto bros dump NFT apes aggressively. And with minimal taste, the shadow reappears, a hooded figure vaulting through a window slit. Graceful, silent, makes your own break-ins look like interpretive dance. They snatch the board pieces rattling a protest and vanish. Noticed by exactly no one. Typical Viking parties alternated between all-night feasts and comas, masquerading as sleep. You follow, because curiosity killed the skald, but satisfaction brought him back as a ghost with great anecdotes. Pine needles crack underfoot, each snap echoes like a bone xylophone. The thief's trail carves through bracken, crushed leaves whisper directions. Quirky tidbit. Berserkers reportedly munched henbane seeds before raids. Turns out tripping balls makes axe murder more festive. You half expect the thief to start hallucinating woodland raves. A twang splits the night. Your foot catches a wire, sending iron bells screaming into the dark. Clever girl. The thief spins, hood falling to reveal a woman's sharp grin. She's already 10 paces up a scree slope, chest set strapped tight. Fetch dog, she barks, lobbing a pawn into the ravine below. You hesitate, part pride, part survival instinct. The pawn hits water. A low growl ripples up the cliffs. Not a dog, not a wolf, something that chuffs like a bear, with a kazoo wedged in its trachea. Björn, the thief cheers, already scrambling higher. Dinner's shy. You sprint parallel, boots skidding on lichen. The beast's breath hots your neck. It reeks of decay and petrified salmon. Historians still argue whether Vikings kept tame bears, or just hallucinated them during mead-fueled paranoia. Either way, tonight's argument has teeth. You corner on a ledge, crumbling shale underfoot. The thief perches above, gleefully rearranging her stolen kings. The bear crashes through brush behind. Quick math, mauled by beastie, or negotiate with a kleptomaniac. Board's missing 3 pieces, she hollers. Fetch them, I'll call off Björn. A queen surfaces in your memory, discarded near the longhouse midden. 2 pawns sank in the fjord during your swim. You hiss coordinates through gritted teeth. Lovely. Now she whistles 2 notes that sour the air. The bear halts, snout twitching, then lumbers into mist. Go the knot, she croons, vanishing over the ridge. Dawn bleeds across the peaks. It reveals claw marks on the game board's trail. Every third rocks a fake, trapstone replicas, carved by some paranoid artisan. Step wrong, and you'll audition for Valhalla's quarry choir. You find the first pawn wedged between funeral stones, rusted nails guard its sides. The second glows underwater pale as a drowned finger. The queen's curled in a fox den alongside 3 human molars. Vikings, nature's original recyclers. The final piece waits atop a sea stack, waves frothing 60 feet below. Climbing would be madness, which explains the mead horn tied to your belt. You drink. The world gets funnier and dumber. Halfway up, your hand slips, fingernails catching runes carved into the rock. A prayer, shopping list, ancient Yelp review. The horn's mead says, keep climbing. The part of your brain that enjoys living votes, no. Briefly, the rook perches in a seabird's nest, eggs swapped for carved bone. Mama gull dive bombs your scalp, a hairdo upgrade involving blood and spite. You retreat, rook in fist, dignity abandoned on the cliff. No sign of the thief, just her laughter in the wind. And Björn's paw prints leading into a sea cave's maw. Salt crusts the walls, it glitters like false promises. Inside whispers, not Norse, not human. The chessmen hum in your satchel, a chord that chills spit. Your boot crunches something, not shells, not bone, glass shards, green and jagged. A dozen broken bottles, and one intact, the labels faded. But you recognize the sigil, a serpent coiled around a longship. Same emblem stamped on your stolen rook. Muffled waves hiss warnings. This isn't a cave. It's a loading dock. The bottle's glass bites your palm, serpent sigil pulsing like a frozen heartbeat. Waves boom against the cave's hidden dock, its timbers warped by decades of salt and secrecy. You uncork the bottle. No mead, just parchment so old it exhales a sigh of mildew. A king's final words scrawled in berry ink and desperation. Let Othen witness, I choose the board over blood, Skall and Skemtelict Dothaddens. Funny thing about Viking royals, they treated suicide notes like bad Yelp reviews, always leaving cliffhangers. Your torch gutters, shadows leap to reveal rows of barrels lashed to mossy walls. Whale oil, ale, without question both. Mainstream fact. Norse traders hauled walrus tusks as far as Baghdad, then spent the profits on enough booze to pickle a fjord. The chess set thrums in your bag, its pieces vibrating like angry hornets. You spill them onto a salt-crusted workbench. The fallen king's crown dangles askew. It mirrors the narwhal-tusked monarch from the longhouse. But here's the kicker. A dagger's hilt protrudes from the board's center. Blade buried to the crossguard. Historians still argue whether Viking rulers ritually killed chess sets after defeats, or just hated losing while hammered. The thief's voice slices through the damp. Found the last rook, A. She perches on a barrel, hood down, hair wild as a berserker's hangover. Björn lurks behind, sniffing your satchel with a bear-sized maybe later. You gesture to the dagger. She smirks. Endgame of Eirik, the addled, drunkest Jarl to draw breath. Lost his crown, then his mind, then his lunch. Quirky tidbit. Eirik's chess set was found in a peat bog with mead residue in every pawn. Turns out liquid courage works better in cups than carved bone. The thief spins a pawn on the table. It wobbles like a novice skater. Tradition says he stabbed the board mid-game, though stabbed might mean tripped while drunk and fell dagger first. Wind howls through the cave. It carries a guttural chant, not from above, from the board itself. The dagger trembles, seawater weeps from the blade's socket. Björn whimpers, smart bear. Here's the fun part. The thief flicks the king's piece. It topples, the cave shudders. Crates split, spilling whalebone carvings and tarnished silver. Eirik didn't just surrender. He moved. You lean closer. The dagger isn't driven through the board, it's a piece. Wedged between squares like a final, desperate gambit. A rook's shadow creeps up the wall, stretching into a longship's silhouette. The thief's grin turns feral. Drink before you think it's his style. The bottle's dregs cling like tar. You swallow, fire floods your throat. Vision blurs, sharpens, shifts. Eirik slumps over the board, face puffy from ale and defeat. His hall reeks of burnt barley and shame. Opponent's pieces loom, raven-carved fiends laughing in silent victory. He snarls, dagger raised. Not to strike, to place. Blade bites oak. Checkmate by self-sabotage. The vision ruptures. You're back in the cave, dagger, now a hair's breadth from your thumb. The thief hums a funeral dirge. Björn licks mead off the floor. Eirik's curse. She taps the board's split wood. Stab the game to end it. But the game eats back. One rule she omits. Removing the dagger summons the loser's fate. Your hand drifts toward the hilt. Wouldn't be the worst decision tonight, beats bear mauling. The thief watches, amber eyes lit with gleeful doom. Twist the blade. A thunderclap silences the waves. The board cracks, spilling bone dust and echoes. Björn roars. The thief vanishes, her laugh swallowed by the cave's throat. Seafloor trembles. Timbers groan. Eirik's last move wasn't a surrender. It was an invitation. Water surges through the dock. It claws your knees, then your waist. The cave becomes a throat. You kick toward moonlight, chess pieces swirling like ash. Björn paddles past, priorities straight. Float or gulp, your satchel grows heavy with stolen kings. The dagger remains below, lodged where a king fell, and where you now rise. Mostly, surface air stings like salvation. No thief, no bear, just the fjord, its surface glittering with shattered mead bottles. The chessboard bobs beside you, daggerless and smiling. Moonlight slicks the deck like spilled mercury. Your boots skid on phantom brine. The chessboard lies lashed to the mast, empty squares mocking your survival. Whale oil lanterns sway, their smoke clotting into rook-shaped shadows. A crewman mutters, his breath reeks of herring and fear. Bad luck to mock the sea's tithe, mainstream fact. Vikings turned whale vertebrae into fishing stools, poetic. Until you realize they called them H-Falriki, literally, whale wreck. Tonight, you're the wreck. The captain stomps past, her whalebone leg clicking Morse code for mutiny brewing. Check the holds. You descend, each step squelching louder than Björn's post-meal belches. Crates of blubber ooze black blood, and there, between barrels of pickled cod, a chess piece glows. The bishop. Frost feathers its surface, though the room's hot as hell's armpit. Quirky tidbit. A 12th century scald's diary claims whalebone pieces hum when near their bone kin. You nudge the bishop with your boot, it sings. A low, wet note. The deck above erupts in shouts. Back topside, the crew crowds the rail. Below, the sea churns with bioluminescent swirls, forming a chessboard. A rook-shaped wave crests, spewing translucent pawns onto the deck. They skitter like cockroaches, each carved from glowing whale cartilage. The captain draws her cutlass. Eirik's curse follows you like a lost pup. Historians still argue whether Viking Age whale hunts included rituals to balance the scales, or if that's just modern guilt sprinkled on sagas. You grab a harpoon, its tip trembling like a compass needle. A pawn lunges, you bat it away. It explodes into mist that reeks of fermented shark. The first mate laughs, hysteria high-pitched. They're just bones. He stomps a knight. His boot sticks tendrils of bone marrow snaking up his calf. He falls gurgling as the knight dissolves into his veins. His eyes cloud white. Check, he whispers, voice layered with a dozen dead sailors. The captain rams her blade into the possessed man's chest, its polite violence. He collapses, a rook-shaped welt rising on his neck. The crew scatters, except Olaf. Poor, greedy Olaf stuffed a pawn in his pocket during the chaos. Now he's stuck to the mainmast, screaming as the piece gnaws through his coat. You lurch toward the chessboard, still lashed tight. The king square pulses. Been in this mess 5 minutes already, Miss Björn. Wrenching the ropes free, you flip the board. Salt water gushes from its seams, along with Eirik's dagger. Still crusted in cave muck, a queen-shaped wave rises 8 stories tall. Her crown, a writhing mass of barnacles and eels. The crew prays to Thor. You're atheist adjacent after tonight. Endgame, the captain bellows, thrusting the dagger into your palm. Her whalebone leg cracks, revealing hollowed ivory full of mead. Priorities. The ghostly queen dives, jaw unhinging into a tsunami. You ram the dagger into the board's center, just as Eirik did. A shockwave ripples outward, freezing the wave mid-crash. Pawns shatter. Knights crumble. The ocean exhales. Silence. Then the creak of wood. The ship lists every nail and plank straining northward. Whale oil lanterns dim, relight as bioluminescent kelp. The crew's tattoos writhe, anchors transforming into tiny chessboards. The captain spits overboard. Tithes paid, mostly. You glance at the dagger now fused to the board. A trade, one cursed artifact for safe passage. Classic Nordic bargaining. Dawn bleeds across the horizon. It highlights the new figurehead. A whalebone queen, her paw-clawed hand pointing toward shore. Or maybe the next bad decision. Olaf's still stuck to the mast. Anyone got butter? You leave him to his structural bonding. The chessboard hums a lullaby now. As you pocket it, your thumb brushes the dagger's edge. A bead of blood swells. The ocean licks its lips. Frost creeps up your sleeves. As you trudge ashore, each footprint crystallizes before the next boot falls. The chessboard hums against your hip, its vibrations synced to your chattering teeth. Harbor taverns glow in the distance, their warmth as attainable as Valhalla. You finger Eirik's dagger, still fused to the board, and wonder which cursed you faster. It or winter. A frozen stream crackles underfoot, its ice etched with rune-like fractures. Mainstream fact. Viking scouts used such ice patterns to navigate nature's own star charts. You'd trade every rune for a thermal onesie. The dagger flares hot, its sudden warmth almost worse than the cold. A rook-shaped burn blooms on your palm. Efficiency, maiming you without wasting arrows. The board slips from your belt, skidding across ice until it halts midair, suspended like a spider web. Touch it, and your fingertips stick, frost vines spiraling up your wrist. You yank free, leaving skin behind. The board laughs, a sound like glaciers calving. Quirky tidbit. Archaeologists once found a whalebone die frozen in a 10th century chieftain's fist, still clutched after 1,100 winters. You eye your own cursed accessory. Some legacies overstay their welcome. Shelter appears or collapses. A half-buried longhouse roof sags under snowdrifts. Inside, ice-laced webs where mead horns once hung. You huddle by a hearth full of frozen embers, the dagger's heat now a tease. The board levitates beside you, plotting. Mistake. The moment you blink, pieces rearrange themselves. Pawns encircle your boots, their bases sprouting needle-thin roots. The king levitates, cracked crown spewing icy dust. Historians still argue whether Viking freeze-offs were tests of endurance or just generations of bad decisions. You're leaning toward column B. Bjadar, you mutter, an old Norse curse for frostbite. The board hisses, its surface blistering with hoarfrost. Air solidifies in your lungs. Clever death by inverse sauna. You stab the dagger into the frozen hearth, not piety, just spite. The ice shatters, revealing a buried codex. Its pages, stretched seal skin inked with chess problems. Solutions swirl under your gaze, each diagram bleeding into the next. A queen's gambit becomes a map of Greenland, coastlines warped by drunken cartographers. Classic multitasking. The dagger tugs toward a particular puzzle, pieces shaped like sleighs and starving thralls. You press a finger to the solution, less a move than a surrender. Frost retreats briefly as the codex disintegrates into snowflakes. The board howls, a wolf pack trapped in whalebone. Dawn arrives as a rumor gray light without warmth. Your fingers resemble the chess pieces now, pallid and veined with blue. The dagger's fused hilt throbs, matching your pulse. Outside, the longhouse walls creak, their planks contracting in the cold. You pocket the board, its edges leaching heat through your coat. The horizon blurs, white land meets white sky. Navigation. Follow the siren's song of hypothermia. A shadow ripples ahead, too angular for a bear. Closer now, a stone table, its surface scarred with chess squares. Pieces stand ready, carved from glacial ice. The king's face mirrors yours, half frostbitten, vaguely annoyed. You weigh the dagger, still hotter than anything in this wasteland. The ice king twitches a pawn forward. You counter with Irex's blade instead of chesscraft. The piece melts, steam hissing through the board's wounds. The remaining knights shudder, icicles snapping from their mounts. Cheap trick, you tell the wind. It responds by stealing your breath. 3 moves later, your lips stick to the dagger's hilt. 9 moves, and your shadow freezes to the ground. Checkmate comes when the board itself cracks, a thunderclap silencing the tundra. The Ice King topples his crown, rolling into a drift. You pocket it, King Frost's keepsake. The cold eases, or you stop feeling it. Dangerous, either way. Tavern lights flicker again, no longer mirages. Hobbling toward them, you consider firewood logistics. The chessboard whispers a deal, warmth for a rematch. You strap it tighter to your hip. Some frostbite builds character. The innkeeper eyes your blue-tinged ears as you enter. Winter got your tongue, borrowed it, you croak, slapping the ice crown on the counter. Mead appears steaming. First sip, it tastes like thawed ley lines. The board sulks under your coat, its silence almost restful. Almost. Oak beams groan overhead, each weighed down by centuries of smoke. Your stool, interestingly, feels suspiciously like whale vertebrae. Coincidence? Unlikely. The drunkard beside you squints at Irex's dagger. Bad blade, he slurs. Cut my brother's wedding ale keg. Lasted 6 minutes. Romantic. He cried. You trace the board's outline under layers of wool, its chill now a numb companionship. Outside, the wind screams forgotten openings, gambits buried by blizzards. You order another mead. Let the game wait until spring, or until the candles drown in wax. The ice crown sweats, rings into the counter, each one a halved oath. The innkeeper wipes them away. But the stains linger pale, ghosts against oak. Your boots thaw, puddles spreading like timid chessboards. A pawn-shaped ice chip melts by the hearth. Check and mate, Winter. For now. The bard's lute string snaps, its twang echoing like a failed punchline. He shrugs, plucking the remaining chords with frostbitten fingers. Mainstream fact. Viking skalds could lose status for botching a single verse. Imagine cancel culture. But with axes, your mug vibrates, mead rippling in time to his mangled melody. The chessboard stirs, its pieces rattling like unsettled teeth. Hear that? The drunkard pokes your arm, ale sloshing over his knuckles. S.K. Jaldamer's Ghost March tunes older than his lice. You nod, half listening. The notes warp, sharpening into something anatomical. Your molar throbs. The scald winks, a yellowed tooth glinting. Quirky tidbit. A 1930s dig unearthed a bone flute from a scald's grave, still playable if you ignore the tetanus risk. The melody twists, now a creeping frost across your ribs. The board pulses, its heat long gone. Pawns rotate, carved faces tracking the scald's every hymn. You sip mead, liquid courage, now carbonated regret. Historians still argue whether Viking sagas were factual records or just drunk uncles embellishing fishing trips. Current evidence, your migraine. A high note shatters a tankard, shards skittering like panicked beetles. The innkeeper growls, cleaver raised. The scald switches tunes, something jaunty and lethal. Your vision blurs, chessboard runes swimming into musical notation, rookie mistake blinking. Suddenly, you're harmonizing. Your voice grates, lockjaw lullaby doesn't cover it. The board levitates, pieces rearranging to each off-key warble. A rook becomes a ship, a knight morphs into a hanged man. The scald grins, gaps in his smile breathing like storm vents. Stop, you rasp. The command shreds into a D-sharp, splintering a roof beam. Sawdust snows onto the chessboard. Clever death by karaoke. The scald elbows you, gesturing at the stunned crowd. Duet. Irik's dagger warms, its hilt humming counterpoint. You press it to the board, blade screeching like a gutted violin. The melody fractures notes, fleeing into shadowed corners. The scald gasps, clutching his throat. A pawn quivers, spewing black ichor that smells of low tide and regret. Silence. Then the drip of mead through floorboards. The scald croaks, a wet, ruptured sound. You changed the key. Apologies, you're not sorry. He fumbles for his lute, plucks a single string. The note hangs, a silver fishhook in stale air. Third verse, same as the curse. The chessboard shudders, revealing glyphs under its surface. They squirm, eels in a net. Your dagger traces the symbols, steam rising where blade meets bone. A rune ignites, briefly spelling help in Morse code. Too niche. The scald wheezes a laugh, his breath reeking of fermented herring. You're in the song now. Roof beams creak, weighted by phantom choirs. The board's heat returns, focused on your palm. Degree life lessons, delivered via chess set. A bishop topples, crumbling into grave dirt. Check, you hum a nursery rhyme, defiance in C minor. The board recoils, its song unraveling. The scald hisses, notes dissolving into guttural static. A pawn explodes, splinters embedding in the bar. The innkeeper weeps into his apron. Dawn bleeds through smoke-stained windows. The scald's lute lies abandoned, strings curled like dead spiders. Your throat feels borrowed. Words come out brine-soaked and hesitant. The chessboard cools, pieces frozen mid-retreat. The drunkard claps, a slow, sarcastic beat. Encore. You flip him a whalebone pawn. It bounces off his forehead. The board approves, vibrating like a chuckling god. Outside, wind carries ghostly scales, a requiem for drowned singers. You sip lukewarm mead, its tang now laced with copper. The dagger thrums, a war drum's afterthought. A shadow shifts, the skald's silhouette by the well. His head tilts, listening to something beneath the earth. You pocket the board, its music box R-A-G-E Chinese letter muted. The innkeeper slides over a parchment, a smudged staff with melting notes. For the road, you fold it, crisp edges slicing your thumb. Blood soaks into the sheet, a scarlet crescendo. The board purrs, crunching through half-frozen mud. You whisper a lullaby, the one your skull's still buzzing with. Miles later, a glacier echoes it back deeper, colder, hungrier. The chessboard sleeps, dreaming of sharps and flats, and the spaces between. You let it. Some scores outlive their singers. The pawn leaves your palm, its whalebone warmth lingering like a stranger's goodbye. Museums hate when visitors do that. A security camera blinks, red eye judging your life choices. Mainstream fact: the British Museum's Lewis Chessmen sat undiscovered for 8 centuries in a Scottish sand dune medieval eBay at its finest. You smirk, their glass case reflecting your caffeine tremor. That decaf latte was a lie. A docent glides past, her perfume smells of overdue theses and mint gum. Touch artifacts again, sir, and I touch you with campus police. The threat dissolves into a yawn. She's 2 PhD chapters behind schedule. You nod, retreating to a bench worn smooth by guilty academics. The pawn hums in your pocket, vibrating like a misdialed burner phone. Quirky tidbit: an Oslo collector once traded his sob for a single bone rook until his wife used it as a meat tenderizer. Historians still argue whether Viking chess sets were strategy tools or just fancy drinking game accessories. Your thumb rubs the pawn's pockmarked crown, salt-etched from 1,000 stormy voyages. The gallery dims, fluorescence buzzing into silence. A cold draft snakes up your sleeve, the kind that follows you home after bad Tinder dates. The pawn warms, now searing. You drop it, sizzle marks tattooing the linoleum. The case glass fogs, runes bleeding through like septic veins. A rook's carved face presses against the barrier, mouthing silent threats. The docent's pen freezes mid-scribble ink, pooling into a Rorschach troll. "Ah," she says, eloquent. You pocket the pawn again, no choice now. The nearest exit sighs open, a Nordic tourist family spilling through. Their toddler points at you, babbling in Old Norse. Probably not. Let's say yes. The dad's Bluetooth earpiece crackles, static melody matching the pawn's buzz. Coincidence? Absolutely not. Outside, rain slicks the pavement, sky gray as unwashed chainmail. The pawn digs into your thigh, insistent. You duck into a Starbucks. Medieval meets pumpkin spice. Barista name tag: Ragnar, sure. He glances at your soaked hoodie. Longship sink, comedy gold. You order a black coffee, no room for regret. The pawn hums louder, frequency attuned to your molar fillings. Halfway through your cup, the liquid starts swirling counterclockwise. Yawn, subtle, a pe ye en ya ka-shaped shadow falls across the table the docent. Her grip crinkles your sleeve. We need to discuss your piece. Backroom storage smells of dust and shame. Fluorescents buzz like irritated flies. She slams the pawn onto a desk. It rolls toward a moldering ledger. 1363, she hisses. York, a mercenary's will, my bone game set to be buried with me. Her finger stabs a crumbling page, Latin gibberish and coffee rings. The pawn vibrates, snail trail of ash marking its path. You sip cold coffee, the dregs taste of wet dog and existential dread. Finders keepers, the lights flicker. Docents hate that. She leans closer, mint breath gone sour. They're not toys. Last guy who stole one woke up speaking Greenlandic in Phoenix, Arizona. Fair. The pawn leaps into your hand, magnetism or spite. Rain hammers the roof, Thor's mic drop. The docent lunges, keychain pepper spray swinging. You dodge, she face splints into a totem pole replica. The pawn drags you backward, boots screeching across linoleum. Night slaps your face, alley air ripe with dumpster sushi. The pawn's heat fades, sated. Your phone buzzes, unknown number. Return the piece, texts glitch into emojis. Chess pawn, skull, snowflake. Blocked, home smells of microwaved noodles and cat ennui. The pawn glows on your nightstand, feeble nightlight. You check Wikipedia. Viking chessmen often buried with owners to provide entertainment in afterlife. Comments section. Angry Norwegians correcting spelling errors. Sleep comes a mistake. Dreams drip with whale song and drunk ghost kings. A bishop whispers stock tips in Proto-Norse. You wake clutching a pillow, feathers arranged into a checkmate pattern. The pawn's gone cold, playing hard to get. Morning light exposes your walls, new cracks shaped like rook silhouettes. Property manager won't care. He's busy evicting the guy who communed with toaster ovens. The pawn mocks you from the fridge, balanced on a yogurt cup, works a blur of spreadsheets and passive aggression. Your stapler disappears, replaced by a licorice-scented runestone. HR suggests stress leave. You decline too can play this game. The pawn waits on your keyboard, its carvings now spelling RIP in Comic Sans. You email the museum, auto-reply. Closed for spiritual maintenance. Coincidence becomes conspiracy, becomes Tuesday, night again. The pawn demands a rematch, its aura pulsing like a rave strobe. You set it on a pizza box, anchovies as tribute. Distant drums shake your windows, Norse trap music. The pawn rotates, pointing north. Always north, sudden clarity. You're the finger puppet of a dead king's ego. Cool, the pawn shudders offended. You chuck it into the freezer between vodka and frostbitten peas. Let Odin fight General Tso for it. Silence. Then 3 knocks. Not the door, the freezer. You pour another drink, this time earplugs. Some curses aren't yours to solve. Dawn leaks through blinds, freezer pristine. No pawn, No vodka, just an ice cube tray shaped like tiny longships. You crunch one, regret flavored. The docent calls, voice crackling like a cursed vinyl. It's back, but different. Museum lobby reeks of burnt hair and regret. The pawn floats, center stage, its surface now scarred with modern barcodes. The glass case lies shattered shards spell skull in the security footage. You shrug, thieves these days, Amorite. She hands you a waiver, legalese blurring into Elder Futhark. Signing feels like donating plasma. The pawn winks, terrible poker face. You pocket it, the docent's grimace worth minimum wage. Outside, a busker's playing immigrant song on a theremin. The pawn harmonizes, vibrating through your femur. Your apartment's now a Airbnb rented to a Finnish folk band. Their album, Checkmate Polka. Coincidence died yesterday. The pawn leads you to a payphone, its cord knotted like a noose. Dial tone becomes whale song. Coordinates spit out, latitude scribbled on a Burger King receipt. One rental car later, you're ankle deep in Scottish heather. The pawn glows, GPS for ghouls. A mound ahead, grassless and grinning. Shovel in trunk. Obviously, first strike clang. The spade bends, hitting something unyielding. Rusted hinges emerge, a chest smelling of drowned sailors. Inside, 11 bone-white pieces and a handwritten note. Back so soon. The pawn leaps into the set, completing the board. Waves crash unseen. The chessmen shift, forming a smile. You're out of snacks. Rain soaks the rental's upholstery, peat bog, scent now permanent. The board lounges on passenger seat smug. Your phone dies. Google Maps replaced with runic doodles. Next town's pub glows, honeyed tavern light. Locals eyeball your mud-caked boots. Barmaid slides a pint, foam spelling Geo home. The chessboard rearranges itself. Pawns sacrifice themselves to protect an ale-stained king. Classic enabling. You leave cash, overpaying for the prophecy. Highway at midnight, board humming lullabies. Headlights reveal a figure ahead, cloak whipping in diesel wind. Hitchhiking. Here, you break, obliging your doom. The stranger's beard collects frost, eyes twin fjords. He nods, board rattling in approval. His voice grinds like glacier ice. Carry me home, keeper. The odometer resets, zeros, staring back. The radio finds a station. Dead air, hissing runic alphabet. Gas gauge drops, engine drinks starlight. Dawn finds you parked at a cliffside, ocean roaring below. The stranger's gone. So's the chessboard. Passenger seat holds only whalebone dust and a Starbucks napkin. Barista Ragnar's doodle, a smiley face with fangs. You check the glove box. Rental agreement lists, low-key, under insurance. Of course. The first toll booth charges 17 silver coins. You pay in loose fries. Home smells different. Cat now sports a miniature helmet. The pawn reappears in your shower. Soap, scum already forming tiny longships. Resignation sets in roommate status. Eternal night shift at the gas station. Your new side hustle. The pawn ambushes chip bags redesigning logos into Viking graffiti. Customers complain about authenticity. You spit polish a Slim Jim, its wrapper now reads Thunder Meat. Management fires you via fortune cookie. The pawn funds a eBay binge. 3 a.m. Etsy purchases include authentic Mjolnir bottle openers. Days blur checkmate patterns in coffee stains. Microwave beeps in iambic pentameter. The pawn introduces you to shadow chess, played with 2 a.m. regrets and expired coupons. Final scene. You lounge on a park bench board balanced on a stray husky's back. Kids swarm mocking your lame Game of Thrones set. The pawn trembles, poised for revenge. You unleash the queen, her move carves a lightning scar in the sandbox. Children cheer, assuming special effects. Social services arrives, standard Tuesday. The board winks, king tipping his plastic crown. You pocket the pieces, whalebone now warm as blood. The pawn hums, something suspiciously close to a Britney Spears chorus. Progress, city lights mimic starry skies, pollution as constellations. Somewhere, a docent files a restraining order. Somewhere, a longship sails through a grocery store freezer. Your hand rests on the pawn, edges worn smooth by time and human folly. The pieces thirst for mead. FOR Chinese letter chocolates for the electric buzz of Wi-Fi routers. You know this. They'll wait. The pawn rests, its whalebone edges worn smooth against your palm. Rain taps the window, a distant echo of northern seas. You exhale breath, fogging the glass into temporary runes. Museums feel lifetimes away. Now, their glass cases mere suggestion. Darkness cradles the room, only the pawn glows faintly. No sizzle, no hum, just the quiet of a storm spent. Memories of docents and cursed lattes blur softened at the edges. The fridge hums, its light revealing the yogurt cup throne. Empty, you sink into the couch, its springs creaking familiar complaints. Shadows drape the chessboard on your coffee table, pieces idle but watchful. Those bone-carved kings and queens, patient as glaciers waiting. Your eyelids dip, the pawn's warmth seeping into your pulse. Wind whispers through a cracked window, smelling of wet earth and diesel. Somewhere, a longship curtain sways in a draft. The cat's helmet lies abandoned, tossed beside a half-read myth anthology. Sleep tugs, gentle but insistent. You drift afloat on whispers of whale song. Dreams don't come, not yet. Instead, a quiet knowing settles. These pieces, they've chosen you, not as thief or pawn, but keeper. The board's weight feels right, almost forgiving. A street lamp flickers, casting checkmate patterns on the ceiling. You smile, too tired to question why. The pawn's final tremor fades, resolved. Your breath slows, matching the rain's rhythm. Dawn will come with its spreadsheets and licorice-scented oddities. For now, let the world turn without you. The pieces guard the silence, their stories hushed. You slip deeper into the waiting dark, where even ghosts nap. Rest, rest, rest.